Good morning, Wabash. Today, speaking at the Pioneer Chapel is alumnus Zackery Carl with his talk entitled, Work in Progress. Zach grew up in Poseyville, Indiana, and graduated from North Posey High School in 2014. While at Wabash, Zach majored in financial economics and was a member of the Fiji House. After graduating in 2018, Zach joined the Orr Fellowship, a 2-year program focused on developing the next generation of business leaders in Indianapolis, Indiana. Currently, he works at Salesforce as a financial analyst. Outside of work, Zach spends his time with his dog, Cliff, training for the Indy Mini Marathon and playing a lot of online chess. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Zackery Carl.
Good morning, Wabash. It's pretty cool to be able to do that, just saying. Thank you to the Sphinx Club for inviting me. It really is an honor. Before coming here, I kind of needed to refresh myself on what Chapel Talk was and like the general flow, so I leveraged the YouTube and podcast heavily, so thank you to Adam Phibbs and that entire team who records those. Making those a resource to alumni is really great. So Andrew provided you with a brief background on myself. I'll just give some tidbits that are outside of that and just like thank a few people that I don't think I've had a chance to thank like this publicly, so I want to spend a couple seconds doing that. One, Chip Tibbins and my cousin Damon Carl, they really pushed me to go to Wabash. I don't think I would have done it without them, and it was a great decision. And then second, Roland Morin just provided me with so many opportunities through the CIBE, where I had no knowledge of business coming into Wabash, and coming out of it, I had a decent amount of knowledge, and it's really gotten me to where I am in my career. So thank you to those two people primarily. So as I was looking through those old Chapel Talks, you kind of get a list of a lot of these outstanding individuals that are much smarter and tenured than I am, like people like Rob Shook and Bill Cook and Dr. Freeze, and I could go on and on with these different individuals. But one thing reoccurringly that didn't come up across all these Chapel Talks, and I think may be insightful for you guys, is the difficulty of thinking about what to talk about during a Chapel Talk. So from your guys' seats, I wish I was back in them, because you can come here each week, you get to hear someone usually pretty good speak, and then you can go back, you have lunch, and then you get to repeat it the next week. For me, this may be the only time I'm ever up here, and because of YouTube and podcasts, it will be immortalized into the internet forever. So a little bit more pressure up here. And then the second part of it is you can talk about whatever you want. As Andrew mentioned, I've been playing a lot of online chess. Got into it after the Queen's Gambit like a lot of people, and have just been absolutely grinding on chess.com. I'm not very good, but trying to get better. I could sit up here and talk about what I've learned about chess for the next 45 minutes, and you guys would start pulling out your phone and checking the time, but you would have to sit through it. Like, you guys wouldn't stand up and leave. So, I mean, maybe you would, but I don't want that to be reflected on the internet forever, so that's not what I'm going to talk about today. What I am going to talk about is what I think of as just like silly phrases I think that have some meaning to me that I've found more in professional life, especially as a young professional, that hopefully, especially you seniors or you guys going out to your internships, will find helpful. Some of them may be a bit cheesy, but I'm hoping you'll get a little tidbit of information out of them at the very least. So the three things I'm going to talk about today are why you should always say yes to optional drinks, what I learned from playing high school baseball, from my dad specifically, and why you should get a dog. So I'm going to start with why you should always say yes to optional drinks. And for those of you who are not 21, this may be not hit with your mind. You may not understand it fully, but as you go out to your internships, especially as you turn 21 or you enter the professional world, it's a fairly common thing, like of after work or at 4:30, you'll get asked to optional drinks. And you don't have to go. You can go home. You can go and you don't have to drink, but it's just an opportunity to socially hang out with people. In my first job out of college, as Andrew mentioned, I was a part of War Fellowship, and in my role, I spent a lot of time in Excelsior, Minnesota. It's a small lake town outside of Minneapolis. And during my first 6 months or so of working, I went on my first solo business trip, which is kind of like a big deal. You don't have your boss there monitoring you. You're responsible for all your interactions. You don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of in the moment. So it's a fairly important moment in like defining my relationship with that business. So I was pretty deep into studying for an exam that I was studying for that requires a lot of time. And I was pretty stressed about it at the time. It was coming up, and I was planning on spending my time studying after I got done with work. I would sit in the conference room, type away, some people would stop by and say hi, and then I'm going back to the bed and breakfast to just look at my laptop for another few hours. Instead, the sales team invited me out to go with drinks, and this isn't like a company sponsor thing. This is very off the cuff, and in my mind, I had a dilemma. I can either A, go and study and feel really comfortable about that, or B, I can kind of take the unknown option of going out with these people that I really only know in a business sense, that are 20 plus years older than me and can maybe just be like awkward and not enjoyable at all. I ended up saying yes, and I'm so glad I did, for two main reasons that I'll highlight. One, even though these people were so much older than me, forming a personal connection and just talking in general and learning about them outside of the business world, rather than like, Laura is a salesperson for animal health, and she does X, Y, and Z, and that's what I know about her. Instead, I knew that Laura had a dog named Tonto, and Laura goes to the mountains on the weekends, and she loves this one random band on Spotify, and I showed her how to like make a playlist. So we had like a connection there, and those things may sound base level, but when you start having those discussions and those like situations socially, especially in the business world, I think you guys will find, you view that person as no longer in a transactional business sense. You start to view them as like a person and a human who has a life outside of work. And because of that, you are able to work with them so much more effectively. And on the flip side, they viewed me as a human. So when they're contacting me about like, can you make this bar chart for me, or can you give me this data, it's no longer purely transactional. It would be a call, we'd catch up a little bit, and then, we would actually get down to whatever business we were doing. I didn't know at the time, but that team was very responsible for my performance review. And through the course of like forming that friendship with them and being able to work with them way more effectively through that mutual friendship, I'm sure that helped me in the end. So I didn't know it would, but I'm sure it did. The second more funny thing that came out of that was they forever associated me with the song Freebird. So I don't know if you guys know what Touch Tunes is. Do you guys know what that is? Yeah, so for those of you who don't, it's like the millennial jukebox. You download this app on your phone, and you can look at the bars in your area or the bar you're at, and you can queue up songs for it. You pay whatever tokens, and you can play whatever song. And this blew their mind that existed, first of all. And second, I told them about a story how one of my friends, we were leaving a bar, and we queued up Freebird just 5 times as we left the bar. So that means there would just be 45 minutes straight after we left, which is a cruel joke, but it was funny in the moment. And so then I go back. Like, I don't stay for the whole time. I have to study somewhat. And then I get a text like 2 hours later from one of the salespeople, and they're at a bar, and they found the Touch Tunes, and they were like playing Freebird. So in that way, like it sounds kind of stupid, but like that weird connection with them like doing that just like broke down barriers that business creates. You have this professional wall, and we were able to break that down by going through that. So bringing it kind of to a higher level, I know like never say no to optional drinks, whatever. Like there are times that you should, but the moral of the story is, as you guys go into the professional world, your internships, your jobs, it's kind of two-pronged. You have to do great work. That's number one. Number two is making an effort socially to learn about the person. How are their kids? What's their dog's name? What do they do for fun? Basic stuff like that will put you guys way ahead of other people who are coming in just doing great work and then presenting it. So that's number one. Number two, I'm gonna not cut the cord here, and I'm gonna talk about high school baseball for a bit. So in high school, my dad was like one of the assistant coaches, and I played pitcher. And I did okay my senior year, like not amazing, but I did okay. And in one game, I was doing very badly. Like I walked the first 3 batters of the game, and I was really frustrated with the umpire and just really getting in my head. And my dad yelled out the most insightful comment he possibly could in that moment, and he just yelled, "Zach, throw a strike." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, Dad, what do you think I'm trying to do up here?" Like, so in the moment, I kind of got like sassy in my head about it. But as I kind of walked around, and maybe a little bit later, it may not have been in that exact moment, but I thought about it from the perspective of what I think in this moment really does not matter at all. Like, if I think I'm throwing the ball in the right location, or I think I'm doing the right thing, irrelevant, because I just walked 3 batters. Like, doing what I'm doing obviously isn't working. And so during the course of that season, I started to think more in the mindset of less so, like, I'm going to throw it where I think is a strike. And I need to, like, gauge what this umpire is thinking, what's his level of strike zone that he's working with, and how can I best cater to that to get the best result that I want. So after that thought, I didn't get as frustrated with the umpire. Like, I knew what was in my control, and I knew that I had to cater to the umpire who is ultimately the decision maker. And so now, like the last one, let's pull it out of baseball. Let's bring it to more professional, what it looks like really right now for me and how I think about that. In your classes, in your presentations, in the business world especially, how good you think something is quite, it's a little bit irrelevant. Really, what it matters is how good does the person who's making the decision think this is, and how are they going to take it? I'm going to rip off, I was listening to the Pivot podcast today on the way here. It's Scott Galloway and Kara Fisher. It's really great. But they said communication is in the listener, which is very much this point. Like, how you think something is coming across or what you think of it isn't as important as how the person who you're communicating it to is going to interpret it. And so I'll connect it to 2 real-life situations. At one point, I was making a lot of PowerPoint presentations, and I was using a lot of, honestly, what I learned in Rhetoric 101 while making those, and I think you guys learned this in Rhetoric 101, but just like that little thing of just forming the presentation in a way that caters to the person you're presenting. Do they want a lot of data? Do they just want soft, qualitative commentary? Like, little things like that are very helpful and impactful. And then second, in a way, I'm doing it right now. Like, I'm not going to talk to you, like, I love chess openings right now, but I'm not going to talk to you guys about that. Like, you guys would be super bored. It's irrelevant to you. So although I would think it's kind of interesting, like, you guys wouldn't. So I'm not going to talk about that. So my last point, I want to touch on why you should get a dog. And I'll preface this like an investment professional would, in the way that, like, I'm not fully aware of your risk tolerance and your personal financial situation, so definitely don't take this as advice to go get a dog right now. And think about your own scenario before you do so. It's a major commitment. Me and my friend Jack like to joke about that. Our dogs will be around when we're like 37, so it's kind of a scary thought. In May in 2019, I made the choice to get a dog, and then one of my coworkers told me to wait 6 months. You make a choice to get a dog, and then you wait 6 months to see if you still actually like it. And I like that advice. I took it somewhat. I took it like 4/6 of the way. I waited 4 months to make sure I wouldn't change my mind. And then in October 2019, I saw him on sale on some website, I like to say, and I picked him up as an 8-week-old puppy, Cliff. In preparation, I was watching so many dog training videos. There's this guy on YouTube, Zach George. He's kind of like cheesy and like way too positive, but he he has some really good informative content. So If you're looking for a dog, I'd recommend watching those videos. As a puppy, dogs are the most annoying creatures ever. They pee everywhere. They poop everywhere. I think when Alejandro Reyno was here last semester, he talked about how my dog pooped in his room, which was true. But his dog has pooped in my room now, so we're kind of even at that point. They bark, they whine. They have to be catered to so much, and it is very frustrating. So overall, those are all very negatives. And so why do I still view like me getting a dog as a positive thing? Generally speaking, this isn't for all of you, but I think it was the case for me, especially coming out of college. I think I had a very selfish mindset. I'm focused on my career and what I want to do and how things affect me. Getting a dog has really kind of pushed against that because I am now responsible for something other than myself. Like, I have to think about my dog in everything I do. Coming here, I had to think about, is my dog going to be able to go out in time? Like, am I going to be able to get back? If I'm going on vacation, like, what am I going to do with him? And other things like that. And in a weird way, it's made me a lot more selfless. I'm thinking about something other than myself. So when I say why you should get a dog, I think the better way to phrase it is find an outlet by which you can kind of ground yourself and think about something other than yourself, whether that be, volunteering or anything of that nature that is just something about caring about something other than yourself. In my case, it was getting a dog. That's really helped me, but you don't have to make that financial time commitment to have that same effect. So that's my recommendation on that end. And so now I'm going to kind of just summarize what I just said. I know I was using some weird metaphors. I don't actually recommend that you never say no to optional drinks and that you go get a dog right now and that you play baseball so you can get that same experience that I had kind of going through that. So I put in here and I highlighted, I was like, I hope we're at about 20 minutes at this point, which I think we're at about 17 or so if I'm looking at my clock. So kept to that goal of that. I think in one of Rick Warner's talks that he gave up here, Dr. Warner's talks, he dropped something about saying, if you have anything impactful or want anybody to walk away with takeaway, you got to keep it under 20 minutes. And I totally agree with that. So he phrased it more eloquently than I did. I'm summarizing that. And another one I also enjoyed and I recommend you guys check out is Rob Shook's talk. It was helpful for me, especially as an alumni. He summarized it really in 3 key duties for an alumni, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he had 3 main points, and he said, first, we want to accelerate your learning curve. Second, we want to act as your sounding board. And third, we want to help you form connections and form connections with you all. So I hope today, in part, accelerated your learning curve as you guys enter your internships and jobs primarily. And hitting on the second point, I'll be sure that Andrew has my email, and if any of you guys want to reach out to either use me as your sounding board or to, if you see I'm connected with someone on LinkedIn or something like that you're interested in, feel free to email Andrew. I imagine he won't be bombarded with emails, so I don't feel too bad for doing that. And he can put you in touch with me, absolutely. To round out, you might wonder why the title of my talk was A Work in Progress. I don't really think I've mentioned that, so I'll touch on that shortly. So 2 reasons. One, at the time I was writing the speech, I didn't really know what my main takeaway would be or what I would end at, so the speech was a literal work in progress. So that's number 1. And 2, I love the mentality that we are a work in progress. Like, I've outlined these things that I think I'm okay at now because I've learned from them, but I'm still pretty horrible at a lot of things. I don't maintain relationships like I should, like with my family and with my friends and everything like that. Like, I should prioritize that more. I definitely don't always look from the other perspective. Like, I'm pretty hard-headed at times, and I want people to view it my way. So I'm not great at that, but I'm working on these things, and I hope that as you guys enter the real world that you can continue to work on these things that I view as positive as well, and just anything that you think where you can improve. So thank you all for sitting here today. I'm looking forward to all of us getting vaccinated, being back on campus, and being able to hang out normally. And thank you for your time.